So, can I get everybody's attention, please? So we just watched the video about Moses going up on the Mount Sinai and getting the tablets of the Ten Commandments. You guys know what the Ten Commandments are, right? Yeah, some basic stuff like you don't worship any other gods, don't make idols, keep the Sabbath day holy, don't murder, don't steal, obey your parents, and so forth, and so on, stuff like that. So they're very basic commands. And so Moses goes up on the mountain, God gives him these commands, and he's like, I'm going to give the commands, but while he was up there, some bad things happen. And so we're going to get to a passage. I told you that this week I wouldn't make you guys read like we normally do, so I really want you to get this. So if you could listen, I'm going to read just a few verses, okay? Can I get everybody's attention? Yes. There we go. And if you want to write in your notebooks, if you hear something that sticks out, you can draw a picture, you can write a few notes, or however you want to do. Those notebooks are for you. All right. This is found in Exodus chapter 19. We're still on verse 1. On the first day of the third month, after the Israelites left Egypt, on the very day they came to the desert of Sinai, after they set out for Rephidim, or whatever, however you pronounce that, they entered the desert of Sinai. They kind of said that already. And the Israelites camped there in the desert on the mountain. So they're at the base of the mountain, and they made a camp. So Moses went up the mountain. He's like, going up the mountain, and he went up to see God. He's like, hi, God, what's up? And the Lord called to him from the mountain and said, this is what you are to say to the descendants of Jacob. So he's like, I'm going to give you a message, and I want you to tell the Israelites this. And what you are to tell the people of Israel, you yourself have seen what I did in Egypt, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. He's like, you saw all the crazy things I did in Egypt, and you know that this is something that I did for you. He says, now if you obey me fully and keep my commands, then all the nations, out of all the nations, you will be my treasured possession. He's like, if you listen to me, if you obey my commands, I will love you and you will be my treasured possession. You will be my precious.
Yeah, that's kind of scary.
Isn't that kind of creepy? He's like, but he didn't mean it in a creepy way. He's like, if you obey me, he's like, I will love you so much. I will love you and squeeze you and hug you, and I'll be like, you are my squishy. And I'm like, that's Nemo. He's like, you will be my treasured possession. You will be, out of everything I own, you will be the thing that I treasure the most. What does God own? Everything. So he's like, out of everything I own, which is everything there is, you will be my treasured possessions if you obey me. After the whole earth is, although the whole earth is mine, you will be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words you are to speak to Israel. So Moses went back and summoned the elders and the people and set before them the word of the Lord, commanding me to speak. The people all responded together, we will do everything the Lord said. So Moses brought their answers back to the Lord. So God said, tell the people that if you do everything that I command, you'll be my treasured possession. So Moses, he goes down the mountain. And he goes down the mountain and he tells the people this. And the people were like, yeah, let's do that. We're in. I want to be God's treasured possession. Do you want to be God's treasured possession?
Yeah.
Do you want to be God's treasured possession? We all want to be the treasured possession. So they're like, yeah, we'll do it. No. We'll follow everything that God says. So Moses was like, sure, let's go up the mountain. Yeah?
When he came down, he was like, my neck. And there was one sad and lonely person that said no.
Now maybe, but it says as a group, they all said, yes, we'll do this. So Moses goes back up the mountain. Moses is getting his exercise. He's going up and down the mountain. And so he goes back up to the mountain to tell God. So God, he's meeting with Moses this whole time. Hold on. He's going to meet with Moses this whole time, and he's going to talk about what God has commanded. What have these people agreed to? So this is a map of the Middle East. This is Egypt, where they were slaves, right in here. This is Jerusalem, which is a part of Israel. So you see this red line? You guys see this red line?
No.
That is the path that they took from Egypt to Israel. They took a direct path, didn't they?
But why'd they do that? Why couldn't they just go straight up?
Very good question. Okay, before I answer that, you know how long it took them to walk this path?
5 million days.
40 years.
I was close.
You know how old I am?
50.
I'm 31. So they walked longer than I've been alive. And you know what? So I did the math. I went on Google Images or Google Maps, and I wanted to see how long it took. Could you sit down, please? I want to see how long it took to go from Egypt to Israel. You know how far away it is? Only 380 miles.
That's not that much.
I know!
5 miles.
Okay, you know what else is 380 miles? Here in Northfield, Minnesota to Canada is 380 miles. That's not very, that's like a 5 to 7 hour car ride. You know what else I found out in Google Maps? You know how long it should take to walk 380 miles?
How long?
5 days. Now that's if they were walking, you know, that's assuming they were walking non-stop. So say they only walked half the day. How long would that be? 10 days, right? How did they do this in 40 days?
They walked like 2 steps. 8.
Yeah, they went a long way, but you know what? The people, even though they said they trusted God, it didn't last very long. And so God put them on this journey, this long journey where they had to rely on Him so they would learn to trust Him. Because you know how they said that they would be willing to follow whatever God said so that they would be God's treasured possession? This is what happened. I want to jump over to chapter 32. When the people, oh, by the way, he's been up there for 40 days. I said that, right? He's been up there for 40 days. The people were at the base of the mountain going, where did that Moses go? I wonder if he got eaten by a cougar.
That's what they were saying. Probably not.
Should we stay here? Should we go? Is Moses dead? They don't know what's going on.
He falls down.
Did he fall down the mountain and break his arm? Wait, arm? That would, I don't know. Break his neck? So here we go in chapter 32. When the people saw that Moses was so long in coming down from the mountain, they gathered around Aaron and said, come, make us gods that will go before us. They're like, make us a gods because our God has abandoned us, so make us a god so we can, follow it. Because remember, they were following God in the cloud, and the cloud went up on the mountain. Aaron answered them, take off the gold earrings that your wives, your sons, and your daughters are wearing, and bring them to me. So all the people took off their earrings and brought them to Aaron. He took what they had brought to him and made it into an idol. They cast it in the shape of a calf. Apparently they're going to worship a cow. Weird people. So they made this golden cow, and they said, and this is what he said, these are your gods, Israel, who brought you out of Egypt. You were brought out of Egypt by this cow.
By this cow.
This cow that we just made is what brought you out of Egypt. Not the God, that struck the people down and turned them, brought frogs and locusts and parted the Red Sea and killed the firstborn. Not that God. This cow did it. What?
Of course, Mr. Cow, how did you do it on the news report?
You can't make this stuff up. So, okay, here's what it says. When Aaron saw this, he built an altar in front of the calf and announced, tomorrow there will be a festival to the Lord, the cow. So the next day, the people rose and sacrificed burnt offering to the cow and presented fellowship offerings. Afterwards, they sat down to eat and drink, and got and got up to indulge in rivalry, whatever that means. Then the Lord said to Moses, now this is actually God now, not the cow. God says to Moses, go down because your people, whom you brought out of Egypt, have become corrupt.
Are worshiping cows.
Again, it's like the people that I brought out of Egypt, but they're saying that you brought them out of Egypt. They're worshiping cows. Not even a real cow, a cow made of gold. It just sits there. It looks all shiny.
It's pretty cool.
But it just sits there all shiny going. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't even move. It doesn't. What did it make golden milk? So that's kind of weird. Alright. So the people didn't trust that God was coming back. They didn't trust that Moses, their leader, was coming back. And they had this thing in mind, like they had to get to the promised land. Like the promised land is the one thing they wanted so desperately. And without God, without their leader, they were never going to get to the promised land. And they would do anything to get to the promised land. And this is where, oh, God said, don't you come near the mountain or you're going to be struck down dead. That came later. But so good question.
But you never told us that.
I didn't, yeah, I didn't get to that point. So, before we move on,
Question.
I'm going to show you a commercial from the 80s.
Klondike bar.
Klondike bar. Has everybody here had a Klondike bar before?
No.
They are so tasty. I don't even care what you say. They're amazing.
I said.
Does anybody know what the slogan for Klondike bar is?
No, for a Klondike bar.
What would you do for a Klondike bar? Okay, watch this commercial. This was made in the 80s, so it's really horrible quality, but listen to it.
What would you do for a Klondike bar?
Would you make monkey sounds? Monkey sounds? Gee, I don't think so. Got the Klondike right here. Rich vanilla ice cream smothered in thick chocolate. No, that's a baboon. I think you've drifted into gorilla. That's got it.
For that chocolate-coated ice cream, loaded big and thick, no room for a stick. What would you do for a Klondike bar?
You don't have to act like a monkey anymore. Okay, fine.
Alright, so the saying that they had is, what would you do for a Klondike bar? And they're like, people will do crazy things. They'll act like monkeys. They'll do, this and that. So I have a few things on this sheet of paper that I want to ask you. Would you do this for a Klondike bar? Like if I had a Klondike bar for every one of you, but you had to earn it, would you do this for a Klondike bar?
Depends on what it is.
I'm going to ask you that question. Raise your hand if you would do 10 jumping jacks for a Klondike bar. Everybody in this room would do 10 jumping jacks for a Klondike bar.
1, 2, 3.
Okay, I don't actually have a Klondike bar.
You liar!
I said if! I said if!
What?
I said if! Okay, so everybody would do 10 jumping jacks for a Klondike bar. That's not very much, right? Would everybody cluck like a chicken for a Klondike bar?
What?
Yeah. Okay, so might be slightly embarrassing, but you have no shame. You'll be willing to do that. Okay, here's something more difficult. Would you kiss a dog on the lips for a Klondike bar?
Oh yeah! I've done this for a random person's dog.
Okay, most of you would. Tristan's like, I don't know about that.
I don't eat cat poop, so I don't.
Yeah, remember your dogs lick their own butt, so.
I didn't with Chihuahua.
All right, next question. This one's harder. Would you lick a toilet for a Klondike bar?
Done it before.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I have.
Would you walk barefoot on hot coals for a Klondike bar?
Yes! I've done
I don't believe you.
I've seen that's actually a tradition. When someone, like Chinese people, when they get married, the male guy, he has to carry the bride across and walk barefoot across hot coals.
That would hurt. All right, here's the last one. This is the last one. I think I'm going to get you on this one. Would you give me everything you own
Yes.
for a Klondike bar?
Mine's next
Like
up.
everything you own.
So even our house.
Everything. Would you give me everything?
No. Even our wheels.
Everything you own.
My shoes.
You
We'll be
wouldn't,
dead.
right?
You'd be
You
dead.
wouldn't do it, right?
We'd be
Because
dead.
a Klondike bar is not worth it. A Klondike bar is not
worth
worth
my life.
half the stuff on this list.
Everything that I own,
Here's
I
the
own
thing,
my
guys.
life.
Guys.
Yes, we're dying. I said you'd be dead. We're dying. That's what I said.
So the people, their prize was the promised land. Their prize was making it through the wilderness to the promised land. And they're like, if only, guys, we're almost done. We will follow you, God, because God, we trust that you want to get us to the promised land. But when hard times came, and when God and Moses was up on the mountain for 40 days, and they're like, we're not going to get to the promised land because God has abandoned us. Moses has abandoned us. They forgot about God and they went their own way. But did God ever set the promised land as the prize?
No.
No. He said, if you obey me, if you follow my laws, you'll be my treasured possession. If you would just follow after me, I would hold on to you so tight. I would have such a strong relationship with you that I would give up everything for you. What did we say? What belongs to God?
Everything.
Everything. He made everything. But the God who made everything wants to make you his prized possession. He said, follow after me. Obey my commandments. You know what? These commandments, these 10 commandments, they're not that hard. They're not these big, difficult things. But you know what? If your motivation is things that I can give you, like the promised land, if your motivation is money, if your motivation is being popular, if your motivation is even being a good person, if that's your prize, you won't do this because that prize is not big enough. It's not worth doing all of this for your prize.
What would you do for a Klondike bar?
It's not, yeah, you wouldn't do all this just for a Klondike bar.
I'd flip toilet seat.
But you might look at toilet seat. But God, well, here's the thing: nothing besides God is worth giving into all this. If what God can give you is your prize, that's not big enough. Only thing that is big enough to keep us from being distracted with all this is God Himself. That's why I want to urge you, I plead with you, if you don't have a personal relationship with God, make Him your prize. Because God, He wants to make you His prized possession. All He says is, follow me. So could we all close in prayer? And I want everybody just to be quiet, and I want you to close your eyes. We're going to go downstairs and do game time in just a minute after we pray. But if you want to ask any questions, if you're saying, I don't know if I've started a relationship with God, I don't know if I made God my prize, pull me aside and talk to me, because I want to have that conversation with you, okay? Let's pray. God, thank you so much for bringing all these students out. Thank you for who you've made them to be. And thank you that you, out of all of creation that you made, that you chose us to be your prized possession. I pray that you give us the strength and that you give us the ability to follow after you and to not be distracted by breaking these laws that you told us not to break. Because if we focus on you, if you are our prize, you are so worth it. Nothing else on earth is worth it, God, but you are worth it. Thank you so much for what you're doing in my life and in the lives of these students. And I pray that you just give us a great rest of the evening and that you just give us safety as we go home. But I just pray that more than that they would take what they learned today and that they would take it home with them and they would think about it and they would apply it to their lives. I pray this all in your name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, so if you want to go downstairs, we're going to do games. I'm going to stay back just for a minute. If anybody wants to talk, I'll be here.